because I did an hour and a half yesterday. But Tuesday is the day that I try to do them. That way, if people are definitely watching, they'll realize everything's fine, everything is okay. I think that they're starting to feel an oppressive energy in the air. They're not as sure of themselves as they have been. And things are starting to fall apart, you know, on so many levels. So many levels. Um, I'm not going to argue about the shooting in, in Minnesota just because anyone who can see, she didn't hit the dude with their car. She wasn't even aimed at the dude. And she went from a stop to, she couldn't have been going more than a half a mile an hour, and he leaned in and shot her. The issue that I have with this whole situation is that it sets a precedence. And now they're just arguing. Anybody who stands opposed to them, now they think is deserving of execution. There's very little difference when you actually look at ICE and what they're doing right now to ISIS and what's gone on in the Middle East with ISIS. They're acting the exact same. And it's meant for fear. It's meant to terrorize and scare people. But it seems to be having the opposite effect. People are starting to take a stand. And their dear leader yesterday, in the middle of a White House meeting with all of the oil executives, just gets up from the table to go look out the window. It's bizarre. We're being led by an idiot who's surrounded by power-hungry maniacs. You know, Stephen Miller is a power-hungry maniac. If you look at the stuff from when he was a kid, he always has been. And that's why these child traffickers are dancing around. Doug Mesner sends me emails as Johnny Dub that he's untouchable. You know, because that's what they believe, is that they're untouchable. And right now, they pretty much are. They aren't going to arrest themselves. And that's what it would take. It ain't going to happen. Never has happened. And people can say whatever they want. Hey, people can say whatever they want about me, but I've been in this for a long, long, long time. You know? Dude, you better come up with some. I just am going to delete idiots and block them. I'm just not in the mood. All of these young dudes who can't get a date because no woman wants them, and they think that they have all of that. It's just bizarre, you know? That whole Iran protest thing is a total lie. I think you can't believe anything that's going on right now because it's all lies. You know, it's we're at the end. We're at the end. There'd be so much information that people wouldn't know what the truth is. That's the reason why you need to actually focus inside and know yourself enough to be able to discern right and wrong. Because right now, as far as I'm concerned, we've been in the upside down world for a long time. It's just now people are starting to become aware of it. Awareness. And it's funny because I get people tell me that I have woken up a bunch of people, and I always respond sarcastically, like, well, if my aspiration in life was to be an alarm clock, bully for me. But you know, oh yes, no, you can't go from underneath the table. No, no, don't be underneath the table. You'll knock everything off. But I'm not going to stay on here long because yesterday I did an hour and a half, and I just have stuff that I have to get done. I'm working on the house, and just it's been difficult to say the least. You know, financially is just, I think we're all sinking in a ship. I know that I'm overwhelmed, you know, not to mention I have this group of idiots. There's not really any repairs that need to be done, but cleaning. Oh, thanks. It's just a little 3 gallon I've had for years and years and years. It I always have two African dwarf frogs in them, and I even though I'm a fire sign, I like water. So, and I guess that my grandparents, my grandpa and grandma Bannister, who I don't remember. It's funny because my house is a lot like theirs, which is funny because a lot of the stuff that I have in my house, I was just given by people. You know, I'm one of those people that's just like, hey, I have this. Do you want it? Yeah, little dwarf African frogs. They're just tiny little frogs. Two of them. They swim around. And it's just a tree. I don't know if they'd come out. But I love birds. I used to have birds. I used to raise birds. Not because I was actually raising them, but my sister had birds. And twice I had to go over and save the little birds from their parents because the parents started to kill them. So when I was in college, I was known as the bird man because I would have these birds and I'd have to go to school, but they had to eat every 2 hours. And so I had to drag them with me. And then when they started getting noisy, I would take them out in the hallway and feed them and stuff like that. People thought it was amazing. I just didn't want the birds to die. My hair is not long because my hair is long for two reasons. One, because I don't have the money. When I cut it, I have to have it cut every 6 weeks. Because when I cut it really super short. But the reason why I leave it the length that it is because I have a monk's bald spot on the back of my head. And in the summertime, unless I want to wear a hat constantly in the heat, it's just easier to tie up my hair and then my head doesn't get burnt. And so it's for practical reasons, not because I'm making a statement and not because I'm a hippie. My brother Stephen was a hippie. That's one of the reasons why I always had my hair almost buzzed, almost bald to my head. Because as a punishment, my dad and stepmom, well, they sold Stephen to Dick Bishop, but they just ruined him. But one day my dad got mad at Stephen, and this was the 60s, and everyone had long hair. And my dad took my brother in as a teenager and got him a buzz cut, cut all of his hair, and my brother was a hippie. They just broke my brother. So I always kept my hair super short because I was damned if they were gonna do that same shit to me. I learned a lot from my brothers and sisters. I learned what, you know, I didn't save myself obviously from the abuse, but I limited their ability to actually repeat what they did to my older siblings to me, on me. And so, bait, things are getting ready to go down. We're so close to war right now. We're so close to war. And people just, that's why I've kind of taken a back seat. I was told that I needed to let God and heaven deal with it from here on. And heaven's going to deal with them in the harshest way possible. And that's how it's going to work. You know, everyone is on edge now. Everyone is on edge, and it's only going to get worse. The world is getting crazier, not saner. Ice, Greenland, the Middle East. Denmark is threatening war with us. Canada is threatening war. Mexico wants to go to war. But the dude wants a Nobel Peace Prize. You know? Oh, he's going to bring peace, all right. The world's going to destroy itself. You know? Thank you. Victims need a voice. But the problem is that when you start talking, they descend upon you and do all kinds of nasty shit to you. I'm not the only one they've done this to. It's just I've documented it. So for some people, they see me and think that my story is original, and they don't realize my story is so not original. This is what they do, and it's nonstop. It's nonstop. I know that they're feeling an oppressive feeling towards it because a lot of the emails have stopped. I haven't seen a lot of the videos, and people were sharing the videos, so there must not be a lot of shit to be shared. You know? Now, granted, I mean, I'm not bitching by any means, so don't get me wrong, but there's no donations. I mean, no one is helping right now, and that's fine. I'm not bitching about that because we're all hurting. But I will say that they have gone out of their way to try and limit everything I do. And because I was thinking about it, because I wanted to start thanking people when they donated, and Sherilyn was the one who told me I shouldn't talk about it. So I don't know if I should talk about it. There are some people who have donated, and I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful, you know? But I also realize that right now people are terrified, and there's no money, there's no money. I went to the food pantry. It's running low, but if I have to go back next month, you know, finances are just incredible for everyone. And it's hard not to be stressed out. It's hard not to be stressed out. I mean, I bitched about it yesterday, but I can't tell you. I was all pissed off. They broke in, let one of my dogs outside. They have all kinds of money to do whatever the fuck they want. And I can't go get orange juice. And I still can't get orange juice. I mean, it's not like I bring in any cash. So I'm just going to try and do purses and stuff like that. But even then, you know, I'm so not grifting. I have so much. If it was all about the money, I would have monetized my site. I wouldn't be giving the extended version of my book away for free. I would monetize the videos that I have on here. You know, it. I wouldn't have spent $14,000 publishing Rabbit Hole and another $4,000 on the Kindle. But it was to get the information out, you know, and not to mention the blog is not free. And dues are coming up here in a matter of a month or two, you know. And this month was bad because December being my birthday, car my car has to be replated, and my driver's license expired this past year, so now I'm having to get that replaced. And finances are just bad for everybody. But they do put me on, I mean, I feel bad about asking anybody for anything, really. But then what can you do? We're told to humble. And my mother always said, you never know unless you ask. And so I ask. However, and I'm not like Isaac, because at the end, Isaac told me that they had fucked with his PayPal and his Venmo because he wasn't getting donations either. But I think that it's just, I don't think they did anything like that. But of course, he got the idea because that's what Craig Sawyer and Russ Dizdar were running all over national news, saying that's what got Craig Sawyer mad at me at the beginning. Because I told him, dude, don't send them a check in the mail. And saying that their Venmo and their PayPal doesn't work is bullshit. It's bullshit. They could get it fixed. And that's what Craig Sawyer, because I told him, if you send them a check, they have your name, your address, your signature, your bank account information, and if you lick the envelope, they have your DNA. And Craig Sawyer started to attack me. And that was way before anything else. That was before Isaac even was dead. He attacked me, and we went through this big rigmarole where he was threatening me and all of that. And then a year later, he did the same thing to Fiona Barnett and Isaac Cappy. Because Fiona, we were talking then, and she was just like, he's attacking me. And I said, you should go on my blog and type in his name. He was after me a year ago. And so, it's all a game with all this shit, I don't announce when people help or anything like that for the simple reason that they target people. And from what I understand, they're targeting people who actually support me all over again. No, he's okay. He wasn't outside. He couldn't have been outside more than an hour. He was outside a while because he was cold. So they must have just come in right after I left. But I was only gone for an hour. And the only reason why is because I was talking to people in town. It wasn't for a few hours. He was only outside for an hour. I was in town. Otherwise, he would have been outside all day. Because had I gone to Omaha, sometimes I don't get back until it's dark, especially in the wintertime. He would have been outside. It was all a setup. And now I think that I have to go tear apart my house. But my house isn't that big. And I am not a hoarder by any means. My closets, other than a few things in there, my studio has stuff that I brought from uptown, but I don't have shit in the closet. If you can't display it and you don't need it, then you don't need it. I'm kind of like an anti-hoarder, but I need to go through and tear things apart, see if that computer is in my house again. Because if it is, I'm calling the goddamn sheriff's department and making them come get it. I'm not touching the fucking thing. But this is the shit I have to go through. This is the shit I have to go through when they're not hanging flyers all over town with my picture and my address, calling me a pedophile and trying to send people to my house to hurt me. It's been surreal. Of course, the only reason I'm here is because of my faith. God has protected me. And Jesus Christ I did go add the link to yesterday's thing saying, was Jesus Christ real? If you guys have any questions, you guys need to go watch that. Because the dude is a historian. Jesus Christ's teachings are infallible. It is what saved me. Jesus Christ's teachings are what saved me. Because they are infallible. It is the way it is supposed to work. The word is the way it's supposed to work. And I know as victims of this that it's hard to have faith because they turn us against God. And I understand that. But I'm just telling you, everything they did to us was a deception. You know, they're liars. They're fucking liars. They lie about everything. And so, and they lied. God let us, I think, personally, my experience, God had me go through what I went through because in the end, what I realized is that my faith is basically unbreakable. They can't break my faith. They can't. And it's hard right now. It's hard right now because things are so up in the air and uncertain, and I have to worry about them coming into my house. And okay, they let my dogs out. What fucking is next? You know, none of this shit has ever stopped. And they dance around and tell me that they're untouchable. Faith, but again, my faith. I think God put us where we were for a reason because heaven knew that we were strong. Because a lot of victims who went through this, neighbors, and I know at least two of them. And the reason why I know is because they've danced around and bragged about it in my face. You know? Personally, me, I think that Putin is the Antichrist. Knowing what I know historically and about the dude. Yeah, they broke in all the time. They steal shit and then brag about it. You know? Stole a computer, then bragged about it. Thought I was going to get all worried that they stole that computer. Like, what I care, you know? Right now, I could go buy a gun and carry it, and there would be no issue because there's not even laws for open carry now. You know? I have emails where they stole shit. Then I had to call the police. Do I have video of them breaking into my house? No. You know? But when it comes down to it, pointing a gun with someone, they say if you're going to point a gun with someone, you need to be prepared to use it. And I don't know if I could. And therefore, I fit into the category of a lot of people are killed by their own firearm. You know? I need lessons. But then I don't have money for orange juice. Where am I going to go get money for a gun? If I could shoot a gun and I could actually, I would do that. If I could stop them by shooting, you know, but they have frequency. They're jamming my Wi-Fi is what they're doing. They're jamming all the cameras. They jam the cameras. And the locks, obviously, I switched the lock. Didn't stop them at all. But then they were sending me emails that it wasn't going to stop them. You know? The child traffickers that are after me. Do I believe that the Satanic Temple is involved? Well, I know goddamn well Doug Mesner is. Let me give you the whole list of people that I've been fighting. Michael Aquino, who was my handler when I was a kid. Gabe Hoffman, Gabe Hoffman, Craig Sawyer, Lestat. Um, they were all in a group attacking survivors, attacking victims, especially at Neil Brick's SMART conference. His SMART conference is in Connecticut. Then you have Lucian Greaves, Doug Masico, aka Doug Mesner, aka Lucian Greaves, aka whatever the fucking name he gives himself anymore, the founder of the Satanic Temple, and his little partner in crime, Kara, the free range humans idiot that calls herself Skills or Emily Thorne or Siren. She has a million different aliases as well as he does, you know? Then you have all of Sewertown, Jesse and Paula Davis, who have all kinds of a history. You can go look at the blog and my blog and see some of the shit that's gone on. Corey Daniel, Alicia Ray, both involved with, both of them were involved with Isaac Cappy and his murder. Daniel Dowd, Geo Farnsworth, Tere Joyce, Manuel Chavez, aka Defango. My stepmother's on Sewertown. Sewertown is like this chat that they are attracting people with. It was started by Isaac Cappy to fight against child trafficking. And then Geo got involved with it, and all the rest of them got involved with it and turned it right around and made it become something for Franklin Credit, you know? Yes, the Franklin Boys Town trafficking rings, yes. I know they were happening. I know that it was happening. They were taking busloads of boys from Boys Town every Saturday to the Greyhound bus station, letting them walk the few blocks down to the old market that was basically a child's wonderland. There was an arcade and a Godfather's Pizza and Stars and all kinds of stuff that was going on. And so, you know, what the fuck is a gape horn? I don't even know what a gape horn is. What the fuck is a gape horn? I can't quite answer something that I don't even know what the fuck it is. Oh my God. I love gay porn, but you can't explain to me what the fuck a gay porn is. You know? It's or one of the Sewertown idiots. Doug is involved, but Doug has other people who are involved as well. And then you have Daniel Dowd and Geo Farnsworth, and they're all anonymous. They all come under anonymous names and anonymous accounts. And they send threats and they make videos and they do anything they can to shut a survivor down. Someone who's trying to expose the child trafficking, which is what I'm doing, which is what Isaac was doing. That's the reason they murdered Isaac Cappy. Craig Sawyer was involved saying, oh, Isaac didn't have any credible information. Well, I found out Craig Sawyer to be one of the bad guys. So if you believe that Isaac didn't have any relevant information from someone who I know is intimately involved with the child trafficking, then you're an idiot if you listen to him. You know? They work in the shadows. They work in the shadows. And they tell themselves they're untouchable. But the minute you call them out, they are the biggest, whiniest bitches you have ever seen in your life. They're the biggest, whiniest bitches. They can attack and attack and attack. The minute you stand up to defend yourself, they play the victim card immediately. It's just, it's beyond disgusting. Their threat is a free thinking mind. And people who have fucking balls and will take a stand. You know? They don't like people calling them out on their shit. That's the reason why they're trying to justify that murder in Minnesota. If she had just fucking been compliant and let them just do whatever the fuck they want, she wouldn't have gotten shot. So to actually stand up and say what they're doing is wrong is worth and being executed right on the spot. That's how it fucking works now. But look at how they whined and cried like little bitches when it came to Charlie Kirk. But then Charlie Kirk isn't real either. Oh, he's dead all right, but he wasn't shot from the front. He was shot from the back. And how do we know this? Because we have it on video. He slumps before the hole shows up in his throat. Why did he slump before he got hit with the bullet? You know? But they're telling everybody, I know you saw it on video, but you need to listen to us. Don't believe what you see. Don't believe what you hear. You're too stupid to actually put it together. You need to listen to us. But we're the ones hiding all of the Epstein files. You know? It's just sad. It's just sad. And the fact that they think it's working on people, because pretty soon people are going to get pissed. And when they lose their orange god, because obviously there's something wrong with the dude, when he drops over and he's old and not in the best health, the whole Republican Party is going to, if you think they're tribal now, they're going to break off into little sections where they're even more tribal with each other, you know? Karl Marx did have a lot of what was going on. I won't say that I'm Marxist, but again, back when people actually had a brain, there used to be critical thinkers and philosophers and stuff that wrote amazing things. And it wasn't that you were supposed to take on it. They were just to expand your mind and make you think. When we actually read books instead of burning them. That's the crazy thing, you know? If you really want to follow what's going on, at least in America, I don't know if you can even get it anymore. But Mein Kampf is kind of what we're going through. And the problem with Hitler was genocidal maniac, fucking evil as fuck, but in his evil shit, there was a logic to what he thought. That's the problem. Wrong on every level. But it had its own weird sense of logic. If you believed in genocide and superiority and fascist bullshit, you know? He was so flawed. To say Hitler was flawed. You want to know what I think actually fueled Hitler the most? To be quite honest, he had a micro penis. He was known. He had the itty bitty bitty little penis. I think that's what Trump's problem is. He has an itty bitty little penis. I find that men who have really tiny penises have psychological problems. That's just my experience as a gay dude. Every man that I've ever met that had a micro penis was aggressive and had psychological issues. And Hitler had a micro penis. I think that's what fueled a lot. of the hate that he had. I would be willing to bet that Stephen Miller has a micropenis. I would be willing to bet. Don't even want to think about it. Certainly don't want to visualize it, but I'd be willing to bet. Oh, I'm sure they've tried to shut down my blog. But there's nothing on my blog that they can shut down. You know? Screenshots and websites of information. There's nothing, you know? And all I've ever wanted was for all of this to be investigated. That's all I've ever wanted, is for it to all be investigated. And so there's not a damn thing that they can do. If they could, they would have gotten this channel shut down. You know? Lennon was crazy. Lennon was definitely crazy. We've had a lot of crazy leaders. A lot of the stuff has been put in archives. That's, you know. No, I don't necessarily trust Thomas. I don't know how I stand with him, but the information that he sends is stellar. It's top notch. And a lot of the stuff is in archives, you know? So it's easy to go look at it. And again, the fact that they've done such a campaign on him, because they have done a campaign on him, it's the same thing they've done to me. It's the same thing they did to Isaac. It's the same thing they've done to so many other people. And so I can't trust. Because really, when it comes down to it, what they're telling you is that Thomas Schoenberger is a seven-headed hydra who eats children in one gulp. That's what they do. If they, you know, and they can say that the information that he's giving me that I am sharing with everybody, oh, it comes from Thomas. So therefore, it's not valuable. It needs to be completely dismissed. Well, where the fuck, what difference does it make where it comes from? You know? It could come from Santa Claus. Doesn't make it any less valuable, especially when there are archive stuff he has. So do I think that they went after him? Yeah. Either that or there's such an internal civil war going on with this group. And I'm not privy to it, you know? Lenin was a fucking freak who actually exterminated so many millions of people. I'm not even going to argue that. That's like saying Hitler was a humanitarian and he deserved a Nobel Peace Prize. Notice I didn't say Nobel. I don't believe in genocide. That's just me. I don't believe in murder. You know? I don't believe in murder. Been around it a lot. Been around a lot of murderers all my life. You know? If one of them was on fire, I wouldn't cross the street to piss on them. And that's just where I stand. I have been on for 39 minutes, Mika. I'll stay, because you got on here, I'll stay on here. I'll be on here for an hour. So I'll stay on for another 15 minutes because you just got on here. You know? Disney rumors, that's Doug. There were no rocks that were spying on me, Dad. But your little smart dust that you had on there that you were actually using your directed energy weapons to actually hit me with didn't kill me. That's Doug. Doug is in here because Doug knows that he's fucked. He better whip out his dick and balls and put them on as many gravestones as he possibly can because people are onto his shit. They're onto his shit. They know that he's using that satanic temple after school daycare to target the kids. And I bet they've been looking into it and seeing how many convicted pedophiles are all involved with it. Because it's an amazing. It, people are looking into this shit. You know? People are looking into this shit. There's just. You is spoiled. You is spoiled. I think that there are people who just. I think there are people out there looking into this stuff who want to make a name for themselves. I haven't talked to Fiona in a while. Quite a while. I'm irritated with her right now. I'm irritated with her. And I'm not someone who likes to be controlled. I'm not going to be told what to do. And you can tell me what to do, but the minute you get mad because I don't do what you tell me to do, that's when I'll find the door and walk. You know? But she's under the contention of she tried to expose what happened to Isaac Happy, and she couldn't expose what happened to Isaac Happy. And so because I guess I'm less than she is, or not as good as she is, I don't know, but I'm not going to be told that I can't do what I feel compelled to do, especially when I've been told by heaven. I do not need a handler any more than I'm looking for a daddy or to be someone's daddy, you know? And I know that there's a lot of people out here who want this situation with Isaac exposed. This group, like I said yesterday, has gone out of their way. They have pissed so many people off because they treat people like they're stupid and that they're superior. Which is funny because, I mean, Geo, Tere, Joyce, some of the most ignorant people I've ever met in my entire life. They're truly. I don't argue with them. Every morning, Tere Joyce, I see that she's mentioned me, but I have to go do all kinds of shit to actually go look at it. I've gotten to the point where I just don't care. You know? I just don't care. I'm just. They have hate towards humanity. And the funny thing is that they'll never repent because in repenting, they would have to associate it with me. And they hate me. They would never repent. And it's going to be because of me. And I find a perverse sense of satisfaction in that, to be quite honest. You know? I will tell everyone this morning, I was given about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I was given a treadmill that was basically built in the Stone Age. I mean, it's an old treadmill. And I don't put shit on my treadmill. It's in my studio. But today I actually turned it on and walked for 30 minutes. I have actually decided that I'm going to start using it. I'm going to start walking outside and I'm going to start working on the treadmill. because I have been stressed out. And I mean, obviously, I can't afford a gym membership. There's only one gym in town, and it's like $51 a month. There's no way I could afford that if I didn't want to eat. And even then, I just, but I'm gonna start exercising. For a long time, I haven't cared because I was old. I'm never gonna date again. No one will ever see me out of my clothes ever again, as far as I'm concerned. But actually doing walking helps with stress. And so I walked for 30 minutes. It was really good. I just turned on the television, watched a movie. You know, the thing is that I am really active in my house. I don't sit still, but now I've gotten to the point where I'm going to start using the treadmill, and it was great to get on it. Works fine. I mean, it's old. It's hardest. The hardest is to keep it consistent. The thing about it is that if I can keep it consistent for 2 weeks, and I have discipline, so I will be able to keep it up for 2 weeks. Once I'm into it for 2 weeks, it'll start changing because I've been here before. I can't go back to the gym, but actually walking, you know, I pop in a movie and just walk. Today I walked for 30 minutes. It was the first time I'd done it. It's not like I don't walk around town every once in a while, but I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to start waking up in the morning and drinking a cup of coffee and then walking for an hour at least. And then 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, you get to a point where, because what will happen is that it will become addictive to me. I used to work out 3 hours a day and I only took Sunday off. And once I got into it, to not do it just stressed me out. Well, I don't have a gym membership, and even so, I'm going to be 60 this year. I don't see myself going to the gym and working out, but I might as well use this treadmill that I have. I can't get rid of it. I don't know how to get rid of it, and it's big, and it takes up. I mean, this room that I'm in, I have a treadmill, I have a table, and it's a very tight room. It's a because I have a small house, but why not use the damn thing? You know, it's just the thing is, Braden, is that trauma is trauma. I mean, yes, mine is a bit extreme, and that's kind of an understatement. But just because I came from extreme trauma doesn't negate anybody's trauma, especially if they feel that their trauma isn't as extreme as mine. It doesn't negate your trauma. Trauma is trauma. It's not a competition, and one doesn't negate the other. And that's why I try not to talk about my past a lot, because I do have people that compare their trauma to my trauma, and that's not. Trauma is trauma. You know, if you were traumatized, that matters. That's why yesterday, when I was just telling survivors they need to get a voice, and who cares if people believe in their trauma? If they don't believe in their trauma, does that negate the trauma? Does that negate what happened? No, obviously, no. And so we're at a point now in society where everybody wants, being a victim is bad. And yet, we're all being victimized in one form or another. You know, the shit that just happened in Minnesota. You didn't even have to be there to be victimized by it. You know, it has caused fear and stress for the lot of us. You know, others believing is not an important. is not important for you to heal. And in fact, I believe, depending on other people's acceptance of your trauma, is completely opposite to healing. Because if your trauma at all makes them uncomfortable, they're going to negate it. Their cognitive dissonance is going to take over, and they're going to negate your trauma. So if you're dependent upon their acceptance, you're never going to get any healing, because people will tell you, oh, that never happened. Why can't you just get over it? And great, if it was that easy, I think we'd all do it. Hey, it was very nice to have you on. Thank you for coming on. Please like and subscribe. You know, that's the problem, is that when you negate something and repress it and keep it from happening, you put so much energy into that it starts to repeat itself in your life in other ways. Running from trauma is not the way to go. Finding a therapist who can actually help you deal with the trauma, and more importantly, speak the trauma out loud. That's the important, to have someone that you can actually speak your trauma, speak about your trauma out loud, so you can hear yourself talk about your own trauma. That's what I found the most healing. I'm a big person of therapy. Now, granted, sometimes you have to go through a few, because it's like everything, one size does not fit all. So you have to find, but I was lucky enough in the end to get together with an amazing therapist who has spent decades helping me deal with myself and come to terms. That's just the right therapist matters. If you start talking to someone but you don't feel a connection, or you can't trust them, or you have any kind of gut feeling, it's okay to go find someone else. The problem with being a victim and an abused person, and especially abused child, is that we all have a tendency to become doormats. Can't say no, don't want to rock the boat, don't want anyone upset, blah, 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 blah. And then we treat ourselves different than we would ever see anyone else be treated. And it's never in a good way. And it took me years, but my therapist, one of the key things to my therapist that I was taught was how to use the word no. Actually, how to say no and stand by no. No, I don't want that. No, I'm not doing that. No. And being okay with it. And being able to say no without feeling obligated to offer excuses as to why you're saying no. They got us all nowhere, and with a lot of suppression. That's just it. you know? Hey, Mika, your birthday's on the 26th. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the conversation. I don't want people to think that I am ungrateful for anything that they do for me, because that's not the case. I just try not to. If I bring it up, then I'm afraid they'll target people. And all of that. Honesty and truth is the way forward. It's the only way to go. You know? it's just nice to have support, even if it's just in the conversation that you guys, because this morning, I mean, I was on for an hour and a half yesterday, and today it's now 55 minutes. But the conversation, see, I'm not, my therapist used EMDR with me at the beginning. You know, this is what I would do. I was asked because for a long time I saw my therapist 3 times a week because I was that unstable. I mean, I was stable. I was kind of like what they call them, working alcoholics, and people are drunk, but they can still work. Isn't that what they call them? And um, I was kind of like that, not as an alcoholic, but with stress. I could be super, super stressed out and be, still have to do stuff. And, but I was seeing my therapist 3 times a week, and people were asking me, "What do you talk about in therapy 3 times a week?" And I had to think about it, and then I basically told them, it takes me 20 minutes to get to my therapist's office, and in that drive, I would think of 5 things that I either made me so uncomfortable to talk about, or I was afraid to talk about. And those are the things I would immediately start talking about in therapy. All of the stuff that I was afraid of, and all of the stuff that I didn't want to face, and all the stuff that stressed me out, and all of that. And that's, you know, EMDR is training. It's like training movement with your eyes. Basically, it's finding a safe spot. When my therapist was doing it to me, helping me through that, she didn't tell me that she was doing EMDR. I didn't realize until afterwards when she ended up telling me. It's about dealing and coping. Do you know that at the beginning I almost left my therapist? And my partner and I were seeing a family therapist that was in the same office. And so I brought it up and said that I was going to dump my therapist because she wouldn't say whether or not she believed me on my abuse as a kid. And I was told by our family therapist, just go in and at least give a heads up as to why you're leaving. So I went into my therapist's office and said, I'm getting ready to dump you because you won't tell me whether or not you believe me or not. And this is what I was told, that it was not my therapist's job to approve or disapprove of the things that I was saying. My therapist's job was to help me deal with the things I was bringing up. And but it wasn't their job to deny or accept and I like that, and then about 3 years later, it got brought up again. My therapist actually brought it up and said, I want to just add a caveat to that. In the years that we've been together, I have never found you to be a liar, nor have I, nor do I think you're crazy, nor do I think you're making any of this up. She said, so just take it for what it's worth. And so, because a lot of times in therapy, you're not going to deal with repressed memories every single time. What's going to happen is you're going to bring up a repressed memory, and then you might end up having to spend 3 to 4 weeks dealing with the behavior that comes from remembering that thing that you repressed for so long. Because along with the memory comes all the emotions and the thought process and the behavior that was formed by the trauma, because you don't repress happy things. You repress trauma. And so a therapist is to be able to help you deal with what you're having to deal with. But if you have a therapist that you trust, talk about the things that, things I didn't want to talk about. For the longest time, I would never talk about what happened to me at Offutt Air Force Base. I would, I couldn't even deal with thinking about it ever. I could deal with dealing with Hummel Park, but the thing with Hummel Park is, even though it was happening to me, it was happening to other people, kind of. And so the compassion and empathy that I had, I felt faced, but it off at Air Force Base, all the shit that was done to me was done to me. And, you know, it took me a long time to be able to deal with, and it's so complex when you go through this ritual abuse bullshit that they do. The whole thing about it is that a whole the they discombobulate everything. So everything's a lie. So not only are you dealing with the trauma, but then you're dealing with all the bullshit that surrounds that trauma. You know? Thank you, Mika. That's the thing that my book, they'll say, you haven't helped any kids. You haven't helped any kids. And maybe that's right. But what I do know is that I've helped survivors, adult survivors of this, because I'm willing to talk about it unabashedly and unapologetically. If this bothers you to hear, just imagine what it was like to experience and the fact that it's still happening to other kids, you know? So I do what I do so that I can, you know, because none of this has been easy for any one of us, any of us, you know? Granted, my stuff was kind of extreme, but every one of us who went through this bullshit experienced traumas beyond belief. You know, traumas beyond belief. And that's the reason why I'm trying to bring down this child trafficking group, because they're still doing trauma to other people. And I'm sick of it. And I'm not going to shy away from them. I'm not afraid of them. And I will stand up to them. And yeah, they break into my house whenever the fuck they want. They hang up flyers whenever they fucking want to try and send people to shoot me. They post videos of my house burning down, of me being lynched. They make threats all the time. They steal shit from my house and then send emails to me bragging about it. The police get all of it. They came in and murdered my friend and bragged about it. You know, all of this shit has happened. And I'm not going to get over it. And I'm not just going to go be quiet about it either, so that everybody else can feel comfortable. And I'm not saying the people in here, but it's like in the town that I live in, the town of 4,000. They don't want to hear it. And so, I used to have nightmares about Aquino. Funny enough, I had nightmares about Aquino when I was, and then in the 80s, I was like a teenager. And it was when Ted Gunderson and Michael Aquino were going on the national circuit. And I think it was Geraldo that I saw him on, the first time I ever saw him on television. And I thought I was going to pass out because I could not believe that I was looking at the boogeyman in my nightmares. I thought he was just a nightmare boogeyman. I didn't realize, I had repressed it so far that I did not realize that Aquino was real until then, because I was a teenager and I wasn't connected to any of this shit, but then saw him on television and realized it was a very, very strange time for me. But I couldn't breathe for for like 20 or 30 minutes. I couldn't breathe. It was, they are very Egyptian. Temple of Set, you know? Set, Egyptian god. Bad god, by the way. Temple of Set, Anton LaVey was the Church of Satan. Doug Mesner, aka Lucian Greaves, is a satanic temple, you know? And yet, when you compare the fact that when I saw him on television as a teenager to when I was an adult knocking at his front door above Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, and I could hear him and Lilith right above me, and they knew exactly who I was because I heard him say my name at least 4 times in panicked whispers that were so loud that I could hear them talking because they were right at the window, and it couldn't have been more than a foot or two away from my head. And so all big and bad who I was terrified of. But then in real life, when I was an adult, he was an old man too afraid to come answer the door. That's just that whole time with Doug Millar and Spence in front of his house when I knocked changed me a lot. Because that's when I realized they're all big and bad in their group. And they're all big and bad when they're fucking have the upper hand. And they're all big and bad when you're fucking a kid. But as an adult, when you're confronting them in the light of day, out in the open, they're little bitches. They're little bitches. The light is creeping on him slowly. Very slowly. And it is on purpose, Mika. Because anticipation makes the blood sweeter. Anticipation makes the blood sweeter. That's what I was always taught, murdering all those little boys in Hummel Park. Anticipation makes the blood sweeter. Pain and fear. And more pain and more fear. Prolong it as long as you can. It fills the blood up with endorphins. You know? They don't make him young. When they drink the blood, it's not that they're drinking the blood that they make him. They're drinking the blood because they're fucking sex addicts, and it acts like a goddamn aphrodisiac. After every blood sacrifice, I got fucking gang raped. It was great. Just, it's the reason why I won't eat sushi. Raw sushi has the same consistency as raw flesh, especially children's raw flesh. It's the same consistency. I've never been able to eat sushi. We'll eat fish, but it has to be thoroughly cooked. You know? With that said, I'm going to get off here. I've been on here for an hour and 8 minutes. This has been great. Check out my blog, davidshurter.com. My book is on Amazon, Rabbit Hole, a satanic ritual abuse survivor story. Oysters are like semen. Oysters are like, when you eat an oyster, it's like phlegm that you snort, you know, snot. It. Never been a big fan of raw oysters. Not a big fan of oysters, period. Oyster stew. Oh, yeah. Okay. Heaven, we come to you as your children. I ask the things that I've talked about today do not trigger survivors who happen upon this channel. Let them feel your grace and remind them that they made it through as children. So as adults, it's hard to remember, but it's also not what it was when we were kids. We are stronger, more secure, way more capable. And what we went through has given us an endurance that we couldn't have really gotten any other way, as screwed up as that may seem. And I think that you're bringing us together because you know our strength and you also know our tenacity. Because there are many of us who have gone through this who want justice, who want it stopped, and we want justice. We fight with righteous anger constantly. And I just hope that you let victims know that their anger is righteous. Now, what they do with it, you know, we can't lower ourselves to their standards or to their level. We weren't that way when we were kids. We're not that way now as adults. So just let my words be heard. Let people be helped. Let people be encouraged. And remind them, as you remind all of us, that your Son, our brother Jesus Christ, came down, that his teachings on the word are infallible. And all glory goes to you. We're still here because of you. You know, when so many others didn't make it through, there's a bunch of us who did. And we thank you for that. And we say these things lovingly, humbly, and gratefully in your Son, our brother's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Cool. I didn't like the taste. What a weird thing to say. But it is true. You never forget it. All right. I got to get off here on that note. It's weird because the evildoers just love to be on here, love to play games. I think because they hide in the shadows in anonymous accounts, that makes them superior. I don't think that it makes them superior, personally. I don't find anything superior about them. They hide in the shadows in a group full of fucking evildoers where they think they can't be taught, where they can't be held accountable. And they're about to be held accountable, and I can guarantee you when that day comes, they'll whine like little fucking bitches. With that said,